It is one of the most important days for those in the race to become the Democratic presidential nominee. 14 states and 1 territory are taking part, with a third of all delegates, more than 1,300, up for grabs. Democrats are selecting who they think will be most likely to defeat Donald Trump in November. Virginia is also taking part in Super Tuesday. The state has the 4th most delegates in play today. The CBC's Katie Simpson is there in Leesburg speaking with voters.
Well, Democrats who are heading out to the polls today here in Virginia for Super Tuesday, one thing that we've heard as a common theme is that people are concerned that whoever becomes the Democratic nominee, they want the person in there who has the best shot at defeating Donald Trump. People might be backing different candidates, but overall, people are really hoping that there's going to be some party unity, and that when it comes time for November, that there is a strong, united Democratic Party trying to take on President Donald Trump. And I'm joined by Amanda Chiaffi. You are wearing a Bernie Sanders shirt, I see. So I'm going to take one wild guess and think that you did support Bernie Sanders today?
Yeah, this morning I voted for Bernie Sanders.
Tell me why.
I think he's got really great ideas with sensible gun laws, Medicare for all, free college, women's rights, and LGBT rights. I think are issues that are really important to me, especially his plan, the Green New Deal. The planet is the only one we've got. We need to save it.
Now, what do you make of how the race has sort of evolved over the past 48 hours? You know, Joe Biden had that big performance in South Carolina. Pete Buttigieg dropped out. Amy Klobuchar dropped out. Tom Steyer dropped out. What do you make of everyone kind of getting behind Joe Biden there?
You know, I think it's really interesting. I've been talking about it with some people. It's really become a Biden versus Bernie race now, and you have to support either candidate. And I really believe in Bernie, and the progressive votes are kind of just split between Warren and Bernie now, and I think they have to kind of unite, and Warren needs to step down and let those votes go to Bernie. It's just so important now for him to be able to get the nomination.
I was going to say, do you think that Elizabeth Warren, you know, because she's pairing herself as sort of like that alternate to Bernie Sanders, not quite as progressive as the senator from Vermont, do you think that's hurting Bernie Sanders?
Not really. I mean, Elizabeth hasn't really done super well in any of the primaries so far. So I think it's really just, it's time for her to step down and endorse Bernie Sanders so those voters can give him the votes that he needs to win the nomination.
Now, if Senator Sanders is not successful in winning the nomination, will you support any Democrat?
100%, yeah. We need to get Donald Trump out of the office.
What do you think about the moderates getting behind Joe Biden? You know, in 2016, when you looked at the race between Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, the Bernie Sanders team was very upset, thinking the establishment Democrats were sort of stacking the deck against him. Are you concerned that could happen again?
It is happening, yeah, 100%. It's happening again.
How does that make you feel?
It's disappointing, but I mean, it's not a surprise at all. This happened last time. It's probably going to happen again. I hope it doesn't, but that's kind of how the cards are stacking up.
Does that make you sort of lose faith in the political system? Does it kind of make you a little cynical about it?
Yeah, it does. I think we need to get corporate money out of politics and all of these special interest groups out of politics on either sides. And I think there just needs to be a reform in how we, as large nation, pick our leader.
Now, this is, of course, Canadians are watching this. This is a Canadian audience. You live here in Virginia, right next door to Washington. What is it like being an American living through such a turbulent time in politics?
It's really interesting. I often think about how I'm going to look back on this political time period when I'm older. You're going to look back on it and you're going to see people who are on one side of the spectrum and people who are on the other side of the spectrum. And then it's just going to be, you know, what side were you on during that time period? Were you on the left side or the right side? And it's kind of a divide, and we haven't, hopefully maybe by then everyone will be united and kind of want the same thing for the country. But right now it's one thing or the other.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time today. And so, Andrew, the polls close here in Virginia at 7 o'clock, and it's one of the first states where the ballots will be counted. There are 99 delegates up for grabs here in this state, but everyone, of course, is going to be watching what goes on in Texas. That's the second largest state. And then going on in California, that's where the most delegates are up for grabs. It's a later time zone, so everyone's going to be up pretty late watching to see how that all unfolds. Heading into today, Bernie Sanders, the senator from Vermont, he is the front runner right now, has the most delegates, and has a a lot of support in those key states, polling in California and in Texas, polling very, very strongly. And it looks like that moderate vote right now, Joe Biden and Michael Bloomberg seem to sort of be splitting that, fishing for voters in the same pond. So it's certainly shaping up to be a two-person race, a Joe Biden versus Bernie Sanders, the establishment versus the outsider, with a wild card, Mike Bloomberg, threatening to play spoiler.